Stand Your Ground: Public Safety or Public Crisis by Delaney, Carly, Sheardon, and Brandon. Introduction to Stand Your Ground laws. Stand Your Ground laws, or no duty to retreat policies, are a right that some states have given the people. These policies allow people to make a choice to defend themselves with lethal force if they deem it necessary when threatened. Only around half of the states endorse this extreme way of defending oneself. States found a 24% increase in total homicides and 32% increase in firearm homicides following the enactment of Stand Your Ground laws. People above the law. In our society, we have a due process model for how we go about dealing with crime. We respect the liberties and right of people, and they are innocent until proven guilty. It is a balanced system that allows for people to get the justice they deserve when they are wronged and a fair punishment for the wrongdoer. The Stand Your Ground law allows people to overstep that legal process we have in place and switch over into the crime control model of solving crime. The crime control model focuses on aggression and quick apprehension rather than focusing on the fair and equal treatment of people. To continue with people above the law, we focus more on how it affects the law enforcement. Stand Your Ground laws render our police officers and any law enforcement useless. Police officers are trained to handle high stress and dangerous situations and help de-escalate problems. Police reports are then made so that the due process can follow through and a fair evaluation can be made. If one of the people is dead or seriously injured due to Stand Your Ground laws, it is hard to hear their side of the story to know what really happened. When Stand Your Ground is misused. We always see Stand Your Ground laws as a way for an innocent person to defend themselves, but we never really truly focus on the opposite side of it. What if gang members use it to avoid murder? What if we see it as a way to avoid the justice system and get away with a crime that was truly committed? According to Susan Martin of the Tampa Bay Times, Florida's Stand Your Ground law has allowed drug dealers to avoid murder charges and gang members to walk free. She further claims that disc parties have been driven to party by vague wording in the 2005 law that has left police, prosecutors, and judges struggling to interpret it. So is this law truly benefiting society, or is it overall affecting and causing more problems in the justice system than adding good? To continue on the topic on how Stand Your Ground is being misused, we look at the Tampa Bay Times analysis. They state the number of cases is increasing, largely because defense attorneys are using Stand Your Ground in ways state legislatures never envisioned. The defense has been invoked in dozens of cases with minor or no injuries. It has also been used by a self-described vampire in Pinellas County, a Miami man arrested with a single marijuana cigarette, a Fort Myers homeowner who shot a bear, and a West Palm Beach jogger who beat a Jack Russell Terrier. People often go free under Stand Your Ground in cases that seem to make a mockery of what lawmakers intended. One man killed two unarmed people and walked out of jail. Another shot a man as he lay on the ground. Others went free after shooting their victims in the back. In nearly a third of the cases the Times analyzed, defendants initiated the fight, shot an unarmed person, or pursued the victim, and were still set free. To give a visual on the negative impact of Stand Your Ground laws, here's a story from Texas in 2016, 9 years after the state adopted the Stand Your Ground laws. A couple was driving to a Houston mosque during Ramadan when they collided with another car. The person who hit their car pulled up alongside the couple, and both parties rolled down their windows. That is when the driver who hit their car yelled, "Go back to Islam." The husband opened his door and stepped out of the car. He was shot by the other driver within seconds. Months later, a Harris County grand jury declined to indict the shooter for murder after he invoked Stand Your Ground. People are manipulating this law to get away with cold-blood murder. So is it truly doing more good than harm is the question we should be asking. The next area of discussion is the opportunities for discrimination. With people being able to make the judgment call on what is considered a life-threatening situation and what is not, there can arise certain issues. This can leave room for legal discrimination against people of color or members of the LGBTQ community. States that legally allow their citizens to take action in lethal ways cause problematic situations for the state, which include 1. Legal discrimination cases can take up time and money from the state to prove the stand your ground case and not promote blatant discrimination. 2. Media backlash if a case is found to rule in the opposite of the public opinion can cause riots. And 3. A population of people who fear each other can cause a constant state of panic. If you look at the chart, you can see this describes the figures that represent the percentage of likelihood that killings will be found justifiable, compromised to white-on-white killings. As you can see, the white on black is substantially higher than black on black and black on white. This is one of the biggest issues that we find when dealing with stand your ground laws and seeing if there's going to be any racial discrimination applied to it. We can show you the data, but to truly understand how there's opportunities for discrimination with the stand your ground law, you have to look at the real life stories. A case in Florida took 7 hours of deliberation on what to do about Michael Draka, a Caucasian man charged with shooting and killing Marcus McLaughlin, a person of color, over a parking spot who claimed the incident was legal under the stand your ground laws. This is a prime example of how a person could claim stand your ground and use it as an excuse to harm a person just because of his race. To add more weight to our claim, here's a few supporting empirical facts. Around 70% of those who claim stand your ground to avoid persecution have gone free. There is a correlation between racial bias and stand your ground laws. 72% of defendants who killed an African American faced no penalty for their actions. When a white person was the victim under similar circumstances, 59% of defendants faced no penalty. There is a correlation between states that implement stand your ground laws and an increase in homicides. And then lastly, almost half of those arrested in SYG cases involving fatal use of force have been arrested at least 3 times before their fatal actions, often for violent prior actions. Florida is a prime example of this. Look at Florida as a case study. Since 2005, after the stand your ground law was passed, you can see a major increase in reports of justified homicide compared to the average of the last decade that they had. Disputing the claims of the other side. Pro stand your ground law claim. SYG laws do not change the criteria for claiming legislate self-defense or the use of deadly force. Dispute to claim. Duty to retreat laws, which SYG laws replace, mean that if a person is in immediate danger of death or grievous bodily harm and cannot find a legitimate way to retreat to safety, they may then essentially stand their ground and use lethal force if necessary. SYG laws do in fact change their criteria by removing the need to de-escalate a situation by retreating to a safe place only if possible, and instead only require the belief, and emotions can be fickle, that a person was in danger. The next pro stand your ground law claim states that self-defense has a long history in the Anglo-American legal tradition. The dispute to this claim is, we would agree that self-defense is an important right and we can honor tradition by keeping duty to retreat self-defense laws. SYG laws may escalate situations and encourage the use of lethal force when unnecessary. The next claim is SYG laws allow anyone to protect themselves from commission of a crime. The dispute to this claim is individuals still have the right to protect themselves under duty to retreat laws, but SYG laws give untrained individuals unfettered power and discretion that could result in fatalities. Pro stand your ground law claims also state that it can lead to a drop in crime. Now, the dispute to this is that with the overall rate of crime in the state of Florida, the first state to pass SYG laws, decreased by 23% from 2005 to 2010, the University of Oxford found that homicides increased by 24.4%, and the number of firearm-related homicides has also increased by 31.6%. The next claim on this slide states that duty to retreat laws place an extra and unreasonable burden on those claiming legitimate self-defense. Now, the dispute to this is the U.S. laws state that we have the right to self-defense, but the U.S. also strongly believes that all men have the right to life as stated in our Declaration of Independence. Duty to retreat protects your right to defend yourself, but also protects your right to live. This pro-stand your ground law claim states it is reasonable to assume that a man in position of danger may not be thinking straight and cannot discern a way to safety. The dispute to this claim is we would argue that danger and fear can cloud judgment. That is why we would argue that people should first use less lethal means of self-defense, so they do not accidentally kill someone and feel remorse and guilt or face harsh legal consequences that could ruin their lives and reputations that would follow this. The next pro-stand your ground claim states that SYG laws can provide immunity from criminal prosecution. This dispute is this is a double-edged sword. This could be good news for those who claim legitimate self-defense, but it can also create a pathway for criminals to claim self-defense and get off without a criminal trial. The last pro-stand your ground law claim states that prosecutors in self-defense cases will end up using their own detached reflection to judge the legitimacy of the actions of another. Now, to dispute this claim, we state that every criminal trial that occurs, whether it be a self-defense case or not, involves the detached reflection of prosecutors. Human bias and error are going to happen when making judgments. This is called discretion. However, we as a society have decided on and accepted the role of prosecutors, judges, and juries. All these pro-stand your ground law claims and the disputed claims are all up for interpretation. We state these as it's our right as individuals of this American justice system to dispute these claims and challenge the legality of it. We as individuals need to keep the justice system honest, and that's why we believe that states with the stand the ground law are being challenged so we can ensure the safety of the citizens that are affected by it every day. To conclude this persuasive presentation, we state that stand your ground laws do more harm than good for a community, disproportionately affecting communities of color. Rates of homicide have increased in states where stand your ground law is used. These laws put citizens above the law and law enforcement officials. They create a sense of panic and insecurity for citizens in those states. They cost the state vast amounts of money debating the cases to see if they were truly within the law. And lastly, all in all, stand your ground does nothing but plunge civilized states into a dangerous, unstable version of the wild, wild west. At this time, we would now like to acknowledge our references that help support our persuasive presentation.